Hello there. If you're looking at this, you're on my books page, and welcome. And I always pray if anyone gets any of my books that they will just be blessed in their own walks with God or in their own considerations of inviting God to be a part of their lives. This is my first book. It's called With Wings Like an Eagle. I wrote it about my story of God taking me to Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia. I went on a contract to teach for 2 years at the University of Kyrgyzstan in the capital city of Bishkek. It was still the USSR. I thought I would only be there 2 years, but 29 years later now, and I'm still very much involved with our Christian charity there called Project Kyrgyzstan. It was quite an experience, to say the least. That does not describe it at all. I thought what I would do on this page, rather than simply write a little bit about what each book is about, or even to give some little excerpt by reading or write, I thought I would just actually do a little video clip for you and just read a little bit from each book. So this is the first one, With Wings Like an Eagle, and the preface begins like this. I left the flight of KLM Amsterdam to Moscow and stepped into a dirty black tunnel that would lead me to even more dirty black places filled with suspicious eyes of Soviet police who scrutinized my passport, my baggage, and me. I was not amused. This was the beginning of what I believed at the time to be my living nightmare on Earth. It was 1991, and quite literally the USSR was falling apart before the watching eyes of an astonished world. Gorbachev was struggling to stay in power, Yeltsin was pushing him out, and I arrived in the middle of it all. Relieved at last to leave the customs area of Moscow's international airport Sheremetyevo, I left the dark hole of surveillance and pushed my baggage cart into a sea of men waving their arms and shouting, "Taxi, taxi!" I had previously been informed that someone would be waiting for me to take me to the domestic airport about an hour's drive away. I searched the crowd for a card with my name on it. Nothing. I moved in and out among the wild gathering of taxi drivers, hoping against hope to catch a glimpse of my name on a card. There was no name, there was no card, there was no one waiting for me except the anxious taxi drivers ever so ready to pounce on their prey. I searched the greedy faces looking for kindness. One young man stepped forward and said in broken English, "I help you, where you go." I spoke absolutely no Russian and could only point to a piece of paper where I had written the name of the next airport, Domodedovo. "No problem," the taxi driver smiled, and somehow I felt at ease. We agreed on the price, and then after a quick trip to the money exchange, where I turned in my American dollars and received in return a pile of Russian rubles, we stepped into the cold Russian night. It was dark, and snowflakes were falling, just a few here and there. My taxi driver had a very small car, and I had 5 pieces of luggage. "No problem," he assured me as he saw my questioning glance. It didn't take me many weeks of living in the Soviet Union to learn that no matter the situation, request, or calamity, it was always met with, "No problem." In just a few moments, we were in the heavy traffic of Moscow. The driver was indeed a kind young man, and it became quickly evident that he truly wanted to please me. He pointed out all the sights as we drove by: the Kremlin, Red Square, Pizza Hut. For my listening pleasure, he found a radio station and tuned in to English speaking. Then, as we wove in and out of the traffic, I stared at the streets of Moscow for the first time in my life, riding along with a man I'd never met, going to a place I'd never been. My thoughts were constantly on the adventures that lay ahead. I had made a 2-year commitment to teach English literature at the Kyrgyz State University in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia, USSR. I wondered what my students would be like. Would they like me? How would I tell them about God when God was not allowed? Would I learn to speak Russian? Where would I live? Would I quickly make friends? I didn't know anyone. I was told that my boss, head of the English department, was a Russian and an atheist. His wife was Chinese and a Muslim. Challenges ahead, I thought, challenges ahead. My mind swirled with all sorts of imaginings and wonder about the days that awaited me. Suddenly my daydreaming ended as the radio began to squeak and squawk. My taxi driver smiled as a familiar song came on the radio. He turned it up. He glanced in the rearview mirror, I suppose to catch a glimpse of my reaction to his musical selections. I smiled and nodded, being ever so thankful for his kindness. It suddenly dawned on me that at that precise moment in time, there was not a soul alive on the earth except this taxi driver who knew my whereabouts. Well, I told myself, the taxi driver plus God. They knew my whereabouts. I smiled again, and as the radio was turned up louder still, I settled back comfortably and listened to the Beatles singing loudly, "She's Got a Ticket to Ride." I hope you enjoy.